Good morning. Born to create. Do you think you were born to create?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that good?
Yes.
Well, I have a few questions for you. First question is, do you have a good imagination?
Yes. Sorry.
Put your hand up if you have a good imagination. Okay. Who thinks they have a bad imagination? Yeah. Okay. Next question. In what way are you creative, would you say? I mean, are some of you artistic? You paint pictures? Are some of you good at writing stories or inventing things? You have good ideas in your work. You kind of come up with some inspiring ideas, new ideas. Yeah. So we're all different. So I mean, I like acting, as you know, and that's very creative. And also being a teacher is creative. But also I like listening to music. So when I listen to music, my body moves because it responds, to the sounds. So, but actually every day we're being creative. If you decide, well, I think I will make chicken curry for lunch. Yes, you have the idea and then you go and make it. Yes. And actually that's something I'm becoming better at, more interested in, is cooking. And my wife's very happy about that. So we're creative in many ways. I would say we're being creative all the time, maybe unconsciously. Another question. Is there something you want right now in your life that you have something you'd like to create that has not yet been created?
Yes.
Yes? Would you like to share that, or is it you don't need to, but if you want.
The ability to play good on the guitar.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay, that's yeah. And do you think you can achieve that?
Not as good as him, but
No?
close enough.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good desire. Anybody else have something they want to create in their life they haven't yet done? Yes.
I have written 3 lexicon,
Yes.
dictionary.
Dictionaries.
Yeah, 3 dictionaries in Kurdish language.
Uh-huh.
My dream is to write 3 more dictionaries.
Okay. So
I'm not sure if I can, but I have 3.
For those on Zoom, one person has already written 3 dictionaries in Kurd language, in Kurdish, and wants to write 3 more. So that's already, you've been very creative, but you don't want to stop. Yeah. Anybody else have something they want to create, they'd like to share with us? I mean, it's really great to hear about people's ideas. Well, of course, right now I'm creating something. Yeah, I'm creating sermons. This is one of my joys now to do this. Of course, it is challenging. Like if you want to create something from scratch, it starts with your thoughts, but then you build on them, and until you can actually put into practice what you imagine. I have one more question. Is there some creation you are proud of? Something you made, even when you were a child, something you say, oh, I was so happy with that.
Yeah.
Yes. We have a very talkative audience here today. So Felix, did you want to share your?
Yeah, proud of my baking.
Oh, right. Yeah. Did you make that lime cake, that lime pie? That was delicious. You see.
Yeah.
So yeah, and people praised you for it. And of course that does just help if people praise you. If you say, well, I'm so happy with this, but no one appreciates it, then it's kind of not quite. You can feel proud within yourself, but when others appreciate it, it's even better. So when I was a boy, I remember my father. He used to make things out of papier-mâché. It's very artistic, like a ballerina or a. I don't know. I remember the ballerina. Normally, it was like human figures. And so one day I decided I would make something with papier-mâché. So I took this glass jar and I covered it with this papier-mâché and I made a face, a man's face. And then I painted it. And I always looked at that face thinking, oh, I'm so pleased with what I've created. I don't know where it is now. I wish I could find it. But, that's like a memory. And I think in my life and in your life, there must be many things that we've created we feel very pleased with. I mean, that's part of it, isn't it? If you create something and it's rubbish, you throw it away. Yeah. But because we are creative, we want to create something of value. And if we do, that stays with us. And that's something we feel pleased with and happy about. I suppose it's the same with God. Yes. God wants to create. And so now I'd like to go on to this question. God is the creator. So what does a father say in the Chon Gong book about God being the creator? He says this world was created so that the incorporeal God could emerge as a substantial God. God is a spiritual being. He created this substantial world so that he could manifest physically in this world, actually through us, most of all. Of course, also we understand that joy cannot be created by yourself. But God wanted to experience joy through his creations, seeing himself in his creations, manifested the way he wants them to be. And then he said this, God's genuine hope in creating Adam and Eve, surpassing everything else, creating Adam and Eve, was to manifest himself and assume a physical form. God intended Adam and Eve to become perfect in love and manifest his inner image in order to govern the physical world. So assume a physical form. We are the physical form of God. Did you know that? Yes. Every single individual in this world is a physical form of God. You know, the eyes, the ears, the organs, everything we have is the physical form of God. So when you look at a person, you should say, wow, I see God right in front of me. Yeah. We may not always think like that, but that's the truth. Because where did we come from? Unless we came from an amoeba or these cells and some spark. But actually, we understand that God created us and he wanted to assume a physical form. And we are that physical form. We are walking gods. Did you know that? And what else? Become perfect in love. He wanted Adam and Eve to become perfect in love because love is the motivation for creating. He wanted his object partners to grow in love, to reflect his own nature, to fulfill that love. So when he looks at us and we have the same level of love as him, we have matured in our character, then he is most pleased. Of course, the fall took place. And therefore, there was this separation from God and people are not feeling perfect. In fact, feeling far from God. So when God looks at human beings, he wants to be really fulfilled. He wants to see us, not just physically, his form, but also internally. And why? So he can govern the physical world, because God cannot directly relate to this world, because God is a spiritual being. God needs a physical body, and we are those physical bodies. So if you think God should appear, we want God to appear in front of us, but God cannot appear in front of us. We can appear in front of each other. God can express himself through us. So God has a limitation because he's a spiritual being. That's why he created this physical world, so he could manifest substantially. He could become God. We are meant to be God. He also said this: by adhering to the laws of creation, we must become his substantial self. We must unite our minds and bodies to resemble and embody God. So this mind-body unity, our mind, we follow God's laws of life and we put them into practice through our bodies, and we are united. And then we are full reflection of God. So this was the purpose. So God is a creator, and also we are creators, because we are God in physical form. So what does the divine principle say about us? By fulfilling their given portion of responsibility with which even God does not interfere, human beings are meant to inherit the creative nature of God and participate in God's great work of creation. God intends human beings to earn ownership and become worthy to rule over the creation as creators in their own right. So we have to earn that. It's our responsibility to become co-creators, to create this world in the way God would like it to be. And God does not interfere. God does not interfere. It's our responsibility. So if you want to fulfill the first blessing, God cannot do it. If you want to fulfill the second blessing, God cannot do it. And the third blessing, God cannot do it. We have that responsibility. We have the responsibility to create who we are, to create myself, to create the best I can be, to create my family, and to use my creativity to make this a better world. The next question is, how does God create? Have you ever thought about that? How does he actually create? Well, again, in the Chong Song Gong book, Father talks about this. He says this: we can see the process of God's creation follows a principle of 3 stages. First, God has an idea. Then he completes that idea in his mind, and finally he manifests that idea. So I suppose these 3 stages, you get an inspiration. To complete that means you have to work on it. It takes time, it takes effort. And actually, when we read about how God created this world, he had to invest 100% of his effort. So it's the same with us. If you want to create a masterpiece, you invest everything. But it starts with an idea, and then you build that idea. You develop it in your mind. You see pictures in your mind, and then maybe you draw a sketch, but it's like it all starts up here. But the body is what puts that into reality. Yes? What about us? Do we create the way God creates? Well, human creation follows also 3 stages. We have an idea. We complete that idea in our mind. We manifest that idea. That's it. 3 stages. We are like God because God is like us, because we are God, because we are God's body, and God wants us to be co-creators. So it's the same process. Yeah. So this is a lot to do with the power of our imagination. So I asked you, do you have a good imagination? And someone said, no, but that's not true. You think you don't, but actually, maybe I think we limit ourselves because God gave us this ability to co-create. So I found a few words about the power of imagination. Imagination is the rocket ship that can lead us into a new future that is unknown, unlimited, and magical. Imagination is not the province of the few. It is the birthright of everyone. Free your imagination with the intention of aligning with your joy, purpose, and passion. Have the courage to let it lead you into the unknown. It's amazing. What a gift God has given us. The gift of imagination. We can create pictures in our mind. I mean, all the great inventions started with an idea. If you look in this room, actually, this artistic work here, this was done by Bodil, am I right? It all started in your mind. You got pictures in your mind, you developed it. And once you got it kind of basically in your head, you created it. Maybe you adjusted it, but finally created. Yeah. Look at this room. Years ago, when we took over this place, it was a butcher's shop. And I thought to myself, oh no, what, are we going to be in a butcher's shop? But then it was transformed. Hans, are you the person who was mainly responsible to design this room? Yes? Hans Futsch, yes. Thank you. No, it's a very, very beautiful place. I mean, the pictures, the wood, like everything in this room came from someone's idea. The curtains were created with some design. Yes. The carpet also came from some idea in somebody's mind. Yeah. The lamps, everything in this room came from a thought. And if you look at the history of humankind, we can see the magnificence of the creativity of human beings. Inventions. Are we lucky? Here we are, we have a computer, we have a microphone, we have a camera, we have Zoom. It's amazing. We live in this technological paradise. But actually, if you look back at history, you can see that there are many inventions. And here's something I found. It says the world's top best inventions. And you go way back to the 2nd century. Paper was invented. Yeah. The compass was invented. And then in 1439, the printing press. In 1712, the steam engine. In 1876, the telephone. And in 1877, the phonograph. And in 1878, the light bulb. Look at all these lights here. Amazing. Is it Thomas Edison created the light bulb? Didn't he have thousands and thousands of attempts to create the light bulb before he made it? He didn't give up. He invested everything. And finally, bing, he saw it. He saw the light. And then in 1903, the aeroplane. In 1941, the computer. And then in 1990, the World Wide Web. I mean, when I was a child, there were no computers, although I wasn't born in 41, but they were just huge things that no one used. There was no World Wide Web. And I never traveled on an aeroplane until I joined the church. So, you know, it wasn't, of course, we had light bulbs. That was pretty good. And we had the radio, we had a record player. My parents didn't have a telephone. So, you know, when I moved to England with Ava, my wife, then we installed a telephone. So that was like, we were bringing my parents out of the Middle Ages into the modern age. And of course, yeah. So where do these ideas come from? Of course, the ideas come in your head, but do we create them? Or did God plant them? Well, what about the invention of the telephone? The television. When I was a boy, we had black and white television. Yeah. I think in 1967, we got color. Wow, look at this color. When they landed on the moon, man on the moon, it was in black and white, fuzzy pictures. Yeah. So you younger people, you know, television, many people don't watch television anymore. they look on the computer or Netflix and or on your mobile phone. I mean, you know, in my lifetime, things have continued to advance. Why? Because of the creativity of human beings, the imagination. So what about the television? Well, I'll come back to this book I mentioned many times, Voices of Love from the Light, because these are messages from spirit world, from people who lived on this earth. And do you know who invented the television? No, I didn't know either, but this man did. You know who he is? His name, well, I'll tell you in a moment, but this message about the invention of the television comes from Einstein in Spirit World. And he said it's actually pretty difficult to create things in new inventions, but they all begin in the spirit world. They already exist in the mind of God. So let me read this. Many scientists gathered in the spirit world to work on the idea of television before it came to the earth, but it already existed in the mind of God. Philo T. Farnsworth, that's his name, was the primary target of efforts by the spirit world to pass ideas to earth about television. Creating a device that could pick up energy waves and translate them into pictures on a tube was extremely complicated, and it took a lot of thought. Farnsworth was impressed by the spirit world in such a way that he could pick up the ideas. He had a brilliance or genius about him when he came to the earth plane. You might say Mr. Farnsworth was born to invent the television. What were you born to invent? What were you born to create? So it's this connection with God. You know, we're co-creators. God is working through us with the physical body of God, but God is inspiring us. And I mean, many people, you can get the, they're getting a sudden inspiration. How many of you can remember having a sudden inspiration come into your head? Surely, can I see more hands? Yeah, yes. If you didn't get inspirations, I think you must be a bit dead, because, we receive inspirations all the time. We may not realize that we're receiving them, because we can consciously create something with our mind. But I think also we receive things all the time. Yeah. So what about music? Isn't music a wonderful form of creativity? Yeah. Maybe that's one of the best ways to be creative, because music really moves the heart. Yeah. So who's the most famous musical band in Sweden? You're right. You're right. Yes. So ABBA, I think, was it the 1974 Eurovision Song Contest? They won that with Waterloo. Yeah, Waterloo. And and they became famous, and then they broke up. Was it 40 years ago or something? They broke up. But their music was continuing to be played, and then they created a theatre, a musical, which then led to 2 movies. So their music started, I think, was it Benny and Bjorn, were the writers, with their thoughts, with their ideas. And so they wrote many, many songs, and I really like listening to them. Who likes listening to ABBA? You see, they're still popular. So where do they get the ideas from? In their mind, in their imagination. So you could say they're very talented. Were they chosen by God? Did the spirit world find these particular people, say, they really love music? And then the combination of these 4 people, maybe it's like the Beatles, the Beatles, great music, because there was a unity, and kind of inspirations came. And maybe, ABBA broke up because they lost their unity. Yeah. So unity is very important to get inspiration, both within yourself and with others. Now, of course, many years later, this is how they look. They're in their 70s. Do you think they've lost their creative abilities? No. Who's heard of their new album? Their new album, ABBA Voyage. Who's listened to it? Only 2 people. I think it's great. Yeah. I'm so inspired that after all these years, their creative juices are still alive. So they managed to come together, even though they'd broken up, couples had broken up, they came back together, and they created a whole album. It was about 10 songs, and I think they're really good songs. So just because you're older in your 70s doesn't mean to say your creativity stops. And the pictures there, they had a concert in the ABBA Arena, which they built themselves in London in May. Did you know that? Did any of you follow this? No. Because what you see there, those pictures are avatars. They created a show without the real people. But in preparation, they had this kind of these suits on with all of these, I don't know what you call them, look like buttons all over their bodies, like the technology, so that they would move. And with modern technology, that they could actually transform them into avatars. And so there's this show that was performed. And so again, this is creativity. Creativity doesn't stop. And people who went to this concert, it's like looking at them, they're on stage, and they're singing with their avatars. So this was quite remarkable. Yeah. Who thinks the music of the 60s was the best music in their lifetime? Yes, see, the Beatles. I like the Beatles, yes. Who thinks the music of today is the best music of all time? Of today, really? Okay. But, it never stops. So I think people who are musicians who go to the spirit world, what do they want to do? They want to make music, and they want to find someone on the earth to actually express through, because it's like God wants to manifest physically, through someone. So those in spirit world with a certain gift and talent and interest, they want to find someone to continue their creativity through a person on earth. So we are those people, aren't we? We know it may not all be musical, although Sarah, you have a lovely voice. So I wonder who's inspiring you. Do you feel guided sometimes? It's like God is within you, kind of. God is inside of us, in a self. Like this is where the kind of the inspiration is within us. Okay, what about books and films? Do you have any books? Books. There are thousands, millions of books. People are using their imagination all the time and their creativity. And many films are based upon books today. And Harry Potter started from J.K. Rowling, one person who had a dream. Yeah, she was poor. She was a single mother, but she had this idea. And then from this one book, she wrote 8 different books. Yeah. And she's probably one of the richest, most successful writers in the whole world. And from that, then the movies, lots of movies. Who's read all the books? Yeah, yes. Who's seen all the movies? Yes. Who thinks the books are better than the movies? Yeah. Who thinks the movies are better than the books? So it came from one person, their imagination. Incredible. I mean, this idea of a school for wizards, it's a pretty good idea, isn't it? I mean, in the first movie, I always remember this guy, this ghost. These ghosts are floating around. And then there's somebody ask how he died, and then he pulls his head off. And he opens his head, he'd lost his head. It's kind of some new ideas that never happened before. But the thing is with Harry Potter, by the last movie, it was a bit repetitive. Would you agree? Or for me, it was like, I've seen this before. I've seen the wands. Of course, now there's an offshoot. Now there's a new movie. What's it called? Dumbledore's Secrets. Yes. Yeah. But, books, movies, they make us happy. Yeah. And what about theatre? Who likes going to the theatre? Yeah. Well, this is where I come in, because this is my field of drama. So you've probably seen this picture before. Mm. This was when I was in the seminary. We were playing 3 Old Moonies, and that's me in the middle. Yes, I look really old there, but I think I've become younger since. But it's like drama for me. This set my mind alight. We had drama lessons in school, unlike I think in Swedish schools these days. And the creativity, kind of the fun, the laughter, it was just incredible. And I felt something inside of me got really excited. And I realized I had a talent, yes. And but it's not that having a talent, it's just that it's something inside of me. So I'm always acting, actually. It's like it's inside of me at home. I'm always kind of creating something. And because I think, from my experience of drama, is that, we did improvisations. I was in this drama club, youth theatre. And when you're given a topic, for example, let's say, okay, this is a doctor's surgery. You're the doctor and a patient comes in. And so you have to create something from this. And maybe you say, well, the doctor is forgetful and the patient is exaggerating his problems. Yes. And then you create a scene. And actually, right now, if I was to ask Nicholas to come up and together, we could do it. Is that right, Nicholas? Yeah. You can create something from nothing. And you're just using your imagination. In fact, I could say to you now, I could guide you in your mind to some place that never existed. So if you don't mind, close your eyes. So imagine yourself walking along a road by yourself. You can decide what time of the day it is. You can decide what season it is. You can decide what you see around you, but you're alone and you're walking to a destination. And you've been walking some time and you're looking forward to reaching this place. But finally, in the distance, you see the place you're looking for. Maybe it's a house. Maybe it's a building. Some place you've been wanting to reach is a place that you've been maybe looking forward to for a long time. And so you come to this place. Is there a door there? Does it look like the way you imagined, or is it different? So you go up to this door and you knock on the door. Does somebody answer it? Yes, somebody answers it. And when you see that person, it's not what you expect. What happened? Is there something wrong with this person? Is it the wrong person? Is this the wrong place? And you're don't understand. But then this person invites you in. Are you happy to go in? You feel a bit unwelcome. But anyway, you go in. And when you go in and you look around, you are amazed at what you see. This was not what you imagined this place would be. And you sit down and you talk with this person about what happened to this place, what happened to this person. And you're there for some time. And then finally, it's time to leave. And you've learned so much and you want to come back, but now it's time to go. And so you decide to say goodbye, you leave, and you walk back. Okay, you can open your eyes. So every single one of you would have come to a different place. You would have. How many of you were walking like in the daytime? Who was walking at night? Who was walking during the winter, the summer, the spring, the autumn? How many of you had many trees around you? How many of you saw cars passing by? Okay, when you came to the place, was this place bigger than you thought? Who thought it was bigger? Was it different because of the color, because of the size? When the person opened the door, were you happy to see the person? Were you a bit afraid of the person? Were you a bit troubled? And when you came in, it all changed. Yes, it had changed. Was it better than you thought? Or was it worse than you thought? Who was shocked by what they saw? Who was impressed by what they saw? Who was excited by what they saw? Who felt at home there? Who didn't want to leave? Who did want to leave? Okay, so you see, all of you have created something which didn't exist before in your mind. Yeah. So actually, we can create anything, can't we? So all the people who write stories, all the people who write plays, all those who are actors, you create something. I create a character from scratch. And so this was in the seminary many years ago. So the three of us, we took a Monty Python sketch and where everything is exaggerated. And so we exaggerated life on MFT and reminiscing as old Moonies and living in a shoebox and, kind of different crazy things. And then, of course, I stand up and in my 70s, I'm saying, finally, I got permission to start my family. So, it's like, it just came from nothing. We took the idea from Monty Python, but then we elaborated and changed it according to our circumstances. What about children? Our children, the first picture I showed was this girl with an open book, and she was fantasizing, picturing what was in this book. Children, you could say, are not as blocked as adults because they have no concepts. They're just kind of ideas flood in. And so, this is my granddaughter, Ginny. She's 2 years old now, and she's getting the paint, the red paint and the green paint, and she's coloring things in and really absorbed by it. I notice children are always curious, always active, always doing something. And then also, this is her dressing up. So, children love to dress up, to create characters, and children use their imagination all the time. Yeah. That's why it says in the Bible, unless you become like a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Because a child's open to all kinds of inspirations. Yes. So we are born to create. We are born to create. That's our very purpose. But actually, there were two things the Father talked about. The first one was that I am God's body. And secondly, I create. two most important things. I am God's body, God works through me, and I create because God is the creator. God is the creator. So I am a creator and God creates through me. Yeah. So I create myself, I create my family, I create my world. So now I would like to talk to you about this person, Erin Worley. And this is where I might get a little controversial because you may not believe the things I'm going to read, but she, one day she was at home with her husband and she had a shower. And when she was having a shower, thoughts were coming into her head. And she said, who are you? And she says, I'm God, in her head. And she kind of, what's going on? And when she came out of the shower, she told her husband, and he said, how do you know it's God? Well, he said, I'm God, Okay, so who is she? And I said, well, she's not such a special person, right? Who's she? Well, who am I? But actually, she had this experience. And so then her husband said, well, can I ask it or him some questions? And then the voice said, yeah, you can ask. Yeah, the voice said to her, yes. So lie down. She said, lie down and I'll do all the work. And so he started asking questions. And so from this, a book she wrote called I Am, I Create. One truth, one law. It says, we are all God, we have just forgotten. And so this book is, she says, is God speaking. Yeah. So I'd like, and in this book, God is described as I am. Moses, when he saw the burning bush, and he said, who shall I say you are? And God said, I am that I am. Say that I am sent you. I am. So actually, there are several books that talk about this idea that God's name is I am. I am love. I am truth. I am beauty. I am goodness. I am eternal. I am unconditional. You could say God is everything. Yes. But we use the word God. But when we use the word God, we get certain concepts in our head. Yeah, that God is up there and God is all, God of judgment or God of punishment and so on. But in this book, if this is God, God is saying, I am. That's who I am. I am. And this is what he says. I want you to know who you are. You are God, and there is nothing more powerful than you. You create your world with your thoughts, whether or not you realize you're doing it. I am each of you. Your thoughts are mine. There is no separation. You are God. It is possible for you to think and create because your inner self is God, whether you know it or not. There is only one real truth. That truth is you are God and your thoughts create. Of course, in the principle, when we talk about Jesus, Christians believe Jesus is God, and we say, no, God is not the creator. Jesus was one with God, and God's spirit dwelt in him. So he is one with God. And we say with true parents coming as the Messiah, that they have become one with God, and we're meant to become one with God. So I will qualify this idea that I am God. Now, I'm not God the creator, but I am God manifested in physical form. Or at least if my heart matures, if my kind of love matures the same way God's love is, then I become God on this earth. But of course, if you say to someone, I am God, they'll say, who do you think you are? Yes. And when Jesus said, I am one with the Father, then how did they treat him? And then if Father comes along and says, or a mother says, I am the only begotten son, I'm the only begotten daughter of God. Well, who are you? But maybe all of us, we are God's sons and daughters. So in that sense, we are fully God. And then I'd like to kind of say a few more things from this book. He said, we are all one. Your inner voice is God. Every thought you have creates. You are an unlimited creator, unlimited. We just limit God, but we're unlimited. Humans are the only species that think and create, because everything else in creation, has instinct. So birds by instinct build their nest. Beavers build their dam. Yeah. But we with our thoughts, we create. And finally, you can choose to follow your destiny or create something different. Last time I talked about your inner calling. So I believe that I have an inner calling, and I believe all of us do, even if we don't know it, but we don't have to follow that. We can create something different. God gives us the free will. Yes, even maybe there's a path we should go, we can change that path. It's up to us, because, why should we be limited? This is your path, the only path you're supposed to go. God has already planned it. It's in your DNA, so don't deviate from it. But actually, because we're co-creators, we can create something totally different. It doesn't mean to say it's wrong. It's just that you can say to God, actually, I like that idea for me, but I want to do this. There's one of our members called Jonathan, can't remember his last name. He wrote Icons of Evolution. Have you heard of this book? He was a professor at the seminary. And years ago, Father asked him to do something, but he said, no, Father, I really want to go this academic path. I want to pursue this path. And so Father said, okay, if that's really what you want to do, do that. So it's up to us. We shouldn't feel, I can't do this because it's against God's will. We should also challenge God and say, well, I really want to do this because I feel it within me. Yes. And so he wrote a book called Icons of Evolution. And icons means all the kind of the pillars of what people believe evolution is, like to justify evolution. And he wrote something to actually show that all of these icons, all of these pillars of evolution are not based upon solid scientific fact.
Jonathan Wells.
That's it. Thank you. Jonathan Wells. So there's an example of somebody who in our movement, because some people in our movement say, well, I didn't study and I wasted my time on MFT all these years and, I got no money and it's all because of the church. Had no free will. But no, we joined because we chose to join. And if those who leave chose to leave and those who stayed chose to stay. And we can't blame anybody. We can't blame leaders. We can't blame God. We are responsible. We're co-creators. So Jonathan Wells is an example of somebody who didn't want to do what Father said, but followed his gut instinct and create something different. And that's fine. And in my own life, I feel that's what I've done. I don't feel restricted because I joined a movement. In the beginning, of course, we had to just follow, but you don't stay there. If you only stay at following, you never grow. It's a stage of learning to unite and to follow and to trust. So it all depends really on our levels of consciousness, because these stages of growth I talk about in the principle, I have kind of translated them into different levels. And the lowest is its victim consciousness. If you think your life is all determined by your circumstances, and then you feel sorry for yourself, then you can't create anything. But actually, the manifestor consciousness is that we manifest our lives. We co-create with God. And actually, the next stage is to channel, to really allow God's spirit to guide us and work through us. And finally, to have this being consciousness, this kind of oneness with God. So it's stages. We must get rid of this victim mentality. Oh, poor me. Yeah. We actually have to create our own life. Now, last time, was it 2 sermons ago, Hans Carlson gave a sermon and he talked about this man, Sonny Liston, and about Muhammad Ali. And what I remember is that Sonny Liston, he had a terrible background. There were like many children in his family. He was beaten by his father. He ran away from home. He got into trouble. He got into gangs. He was put in prison. Later, he became a world champion. Yes, but he lived a troubled life. And when he was 40 years of age, he died from an overdose of drugs. Yeah, and so whereas Muhammad Ali, he had a kind of very supportive family. So Muhammad Ali became a world famous person. Yes. But what Hans said is it depends what the cards you are dealt. in your life. So you could say Sonny Liston's cards were pretty bad. And so what can you expect? He was a victim of his circumstances. Whereas Muhammad Ali, his circumstances were very favorable, and that's why he could succeed. But I don't agree that the card you are dealt determines your future. Again, we have our own personal responsibility. And of course, if you're born into a really dysfunctional family, the chances are that there's more chance you'll be messed up and your life will be messed up. But it's not true, because there are many people who have overcome their mess and created something much better. And so I would like to talk about briefly this man. He's called Mike Murphy. Mike Murphy had a troubled childhood. His paternal grandparents were both alcoholics, which meant his father had to be put into care. And then, of course, his own father became an alcoholic. And at age 14, he ran away from home. He married in his early 20s, but was unfaithful, because the person he married, he actually decided to marry the person when he was drunk. And his wife wasn't much better anyway. Well, she was better. She wasn't a drunkard, but she was too young. And then he drank and he took drugs to dull his guilt, because he kind of felt bad. And then when his daughter was 2 months old, he left his wife. So he was a mess. He was a complete mess. And then his wife divorced him shortly after. But then one day he felt he thought, I messed up my life. What a miserable, horrible person I am. And then he decided, he went to the steps of a church and he said, God, if you exist, reveal yourself, show me yourself, show yourself to me. And nothing happened. But then a few days later, he was going to this Alcoholics Anonymous, because he was still into alcohol. And somebody said to him, I know somebody who might be able to help you. He gave him the address of this man. So he went to this man. He called him the mystery man. And this mystery man, over several weeks, showed him how to change his thinking, his attitude towards life. And because he really was fed up with himself, he really practiced what this man said, and he transformed his life. And many years later, he's written this book called The Creation Frequency. If you're on the right frequency as God, you're attracted, the law of attraction. If you raise your vibration, if you are full of positivity and of love, and if you believe, like Jesus said, if you believe all things are possible, faith is very important. And if you are, you have a lot of love for others, and you're going to attract God's spirit, God's energy, because we're co-creators. And then we can create a much better life. And that's what he did. And he says this: the thoughts you think, the future you imagine, and the actions you take are the way to everything you imagined and more. And this book I'm going to talk about next time. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to put into practice what he teaches. And then I can tell you what happened. Because this law of attraction, you may think, people say it doesn't work. But there are hundreds of books on the law of attraction. And this idea that thoughts become things is not just a recent phenomenon. Yeah. For the last 150 years, there's been a lot of different people writing books on this very topic. And what I feel is that, it's all up here. I come from my background. I come from my limited childhood. Yes, from my limited culture. And we live in this limited society. So we're all affected by this. And if I ask you, which I did last time, how many of you experience God every day? Put your hand up. You see, a few. And some. So therefore, what is it? And if I ask myself, do I experience God every day? I believe God is there, and I believe God guides me. But do I feel this continuous presence of God? So if God created us to be his body, and that God's mind would dwell in us, And God is happy when he sees that we become the way he wants us to be, that we are his love partners. Then we should experience God all the time. So maybe we are, but we don't know. But so these thoughts to do with the law of attraction, I want to get into, because I believe it, but I haven't consciously practiced it. And what he did, he's like saying, we are creating things all the time unconsciously. But if we consciously make that effort and go through certain steps, we can consciously create a better life. And it says, the subtitle, it says here, tune into the power of the universe to manifest the life of your dreams. And he has created a life of his dreams, from being a very miserable person to being a very successful and happy person. And with that, I'd like to finish. So thank you very much. Thank you.